Selfies are a common part of our everyday lives, but for some, they mark the final moments before tragedy strikes. These stories are sobering reminders that life can change in an instant. In this video, we will explore 6 of the most chilling selfies captured moments before death, reflecting on the importance of safety, even when chasing that perfect shot. It was February 27, 2015, and 18-year-old Daylenn Pua woke up early in his grandmother's house in Kaneohe, Hawaii, with adventure on his mind. The athletic teenager had always been drawn to Hawaii's most challenging hiking trails, spending weekends exploring hidden waterfalls and remote beaches that most tourists never discovered. His friends knew him as fearless, the type of guy who would climb the tallest coconut palm or dive from the highest cliff without hesitation. Daylenn had been researching the infamous haiku stairs for months, studying online forums and watching YouTube videos of other hikers who had attempted the illegal trail. Known locally as the Stairway to Heaven, the 4,000-step metal staircase had been built during World War II to access a military radio station but had been closed to the public since 1987. The trail was notorious for its narrow passages, some sections only 18 inches wide, with sheer drops of over 2,000 feet on either side. His grandmother Martha had repeatedly warned him about the dangers, sharing stories of hikers who had fallen to their deaths or become lost in the dense jungle surrounding the stairs. But Daylenn was confident in his abilities, having successfully completed dozens of challenging hikes across Oahu's mountain ranges. He told his family he was going on a routine hike that morning, carefully avoiding any mention of his true destination. At 6:30 a.m., he grabbed his backpack, phone, and water bottle, kissing his grandmother goodbye before heading out into the humid Hawaiian morning. The first few hours of Daylenn's climb went smoothly as he sent regular selfies and photos to his grandmother, documenting his progress up the steep metal stairs. His early photos showed him smiling confidently, the lush green mountains of Oahu stretching endlessly behind him. As he climbed higher, the views became more spectacular, but the trail also became increasingly treacherous, with rusted metal steps and missing handrails creating deadly obstacles. Around 10:30 a.m., Daylenn took what would become his most famous and mysterious photograph. The image showed him posing on the stairs, but in the background, barely visible among the dense vegetation, was a dark figure crouching in the bushes. The figure appeared to be watching him, though its identity and intentions remain unknown to this day. Daylenn continued climbing, unaware that someone, or something, might be following his progress. At exactly 11 a.m., Daylenn's regular stream of photos and messages suddenly stopped without explanation. His phone showed no further activity, and his grandmother began to worry when hours passed without contact. Other hikers in the area later reported hearing desperate cries for help echoing through the jungle, with voices shouting, "Help me! I'm down here!" But despite extensive searching, no one could locate the source of the calls. When Daylenn failed to return home that evening, his family immediately contacted authorities and reported him missing. The Honolulu Fire Department launched a massive search operation that would continue for 5 days, involving helicopters, ground teams, volunteers, and even the U.S. Navy. Drones scoured the dense jungle canopy while experienced climbers rappelled down cliff faces, but no trace of Daylenn was ever found. The search efforts continued sporadically for years, with volunteers and family members refusing to give up hope. The mysterious figure in Daylenn's final photograph sparked countless theories and investigations, but its identity was never determined. In 2021, the haiku stairs were finally scheduled for removal due to safety concerns and illegal trespassing, but Daylenn's disappearance remains one of Hawaii's most haunting unsolved mysteries. It was April 1st, 2014, and best friends Chris Kremers and Froon were living their dream adventure in the mountain town of Boquete, Panama. The 21 and 22-year-old Dutch students had arrived 2 weeks earlier to volunteer teaching local children, staying with a welcoming host family who had quickly grown fond of the enthusiastic young women. Both were experienced travelers who had backpacked through Europe together, but the dense jungle terrain of Central America presented challenges they had never encountered before. Chris, a cultural social work student, was known for her infectious laugh and ability to connect with people from any background. Lisanne, studying applied psychology, was the more cautious of the two. always researching destinations thoroughly and keeping detailed travel journals. They had spent their first weeks in Panama learning basic Spanish phrases and exploring the charming coffee town of Boquete, taking hundreds of photos to share with friends and family back in the Netherlands. The girls had planned their hike on the popular El Pianista Trail as a simple day trip, bringing along their host family's dog for companionship and protection. The trail was well known among tourists for its beautiful views of the surrounding mountains and cloud forests, typically taking 2 to 3 hours to complete. They packed light snacks, water bottles, and their cameras, excited to capture Panama's natural beauty and add new photos to their growing collection of travel memories. The morning started perfectly as Chris and Lisanne took cheerful selfies at the trailhead, their faces beaming with excitement as they posed with the family dog. The first hour of hiking was exactly what they had hoped for: scenic views, exotic birds, and the peaceful sounds of the jungle surrounding them. Their early photos showed them laughing and enjoying each other's company, completely unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold. As they continued deeper into the jungle, their photos began to show a subtle change in mood. The smiles became less frequent, and their expressions grew more serious as the trail became less defined and more challenging to navigate. Around 1 p.m., they took their final daytime photos before mysteriously continuing past the trail's normal endpoint, venturing into uncharted territory where few tourists had ever traveled. 6 hours later, at 4:39 p.m., their phones registered the first of what would become 77 desperate attempts to call emergency services. The calls showed a pattern of increasing panic as the girls realized they were lost and in serious danger. Only one call managed to connect for exactly 2 seconds before the signal was lost, leaving them stranded without any means of communication with the outside world. When the girls failed to return that evening, their host family immediately contacted local authorities and launched a search operation. The initial efforts involved local police, volunteers, and eventually international search teams, but the dense jungle terrain made progress extremely difficult. For 10 weeks, there was no trace of Chris and Lisanne, leading to widespread speculation about their fate. The breakthrough came when a local woman discovered Lisanne's backpack by a riverbank, perfectly preserved and containing their phones, camera, and other personal items. The camera revealed the most disturbing evidence: 90 photos taken during the night of April 8th, 7 days after their disappearance. The haunting images showed makeshift markers, plastic bags, and what appeared to be attempts to signal for help in complete darkness. Search teams eventually found scattered remains along the riverbank, with some bones mysteriously bleached white despite the short time period. Most disturbing was the discovery that one crucial photo had been deliberately deleted from the camera. The case remains officially unsolved, with theories ranging from tragic accident to foul play, but the truth about what happened to Chris and Lisanne may never be known. It was January 19th, 2019, and 36-year-old Gigi Wu was preparing for another solo climbing adventure in Taiwan's Yushan National Park, known internationally as the Bikini Climber. Gigi had built a massive social media following by taking provocative selfies in bikinis atop mountain summits over 13,000 feet high. Her unique combination of serious mountaineering skills and eye-catching photography had earned her thousands of followers who eagerly awaited each new post from her daring adventures. Despite her provocative online persona, Gigi was a highly experienced and safety-conscious climber who always wore proper gear during her ascents. She had completed over 100 successful climbs throughout Asia, including some of the region's most challenging peaks. Her routine was always the same: climb in full winter gear, reach the summit safely, quickly change into a bikini for photos, then immediately return to proper clothing for the descent. Gigi's friends and fellow climbers respected her technical skills and knowledge of mountain safety protocols. She carried satellite communication devices, emergency supplies, and always filed detailed climbing plans with local authorities. Her social media posts often included safety tips and warnings about the dangers of mountain climbing, despite the seemingly reckless nature of her signature bikini photos. This particular trek to Taiwan's tallest mountains was meant to be another routine adventure for her popular Instagram account. Gigi had climbed in this area multiple times before and was familiar with the terrain and weather patterns. She had checked conditions carefully and planned her route to avoid the most dangerous sections during the winter season. The climb began successfully as Gigi made steady progress up the mountain. documenting her journey with regular photos and GPS updates. She reached the summit without incident and took her signature bikini selfie, quickly changing back into her winter gear as temperatures dropped below freezing. The descent started normally, but tragedy struck when she slipped on an icy section and fell into a deep ravine. Unable to move due to serious injuries from the fall, Gigi managed to use her satellite phone to call for help and alert rescue services to her location. She provided detailed coordinates and described her condition, but weather conditions were rapidly deteriorating as a winter storm moved into the area. Rescue teams were dispatched immediately, but faced dangerous conditions that prevented them from reaching her quickly. As hours passed, hypothermia began setting in while Gigi waited for rescue in the freezing ravine. She made several more calls to update rescuers on her condition, but her voice grew weaker with each conversation. The rescue teams worked frantically to reach her location, but the combination of harsh weather, difficult terrain, and approaching darkness made progress extremely slow. Despite the heroic efforts of rescue teams, Gigi succumbed to hypothermia before they could reach her location. Her death shocked her thousands of followers who had watched her daring adventures for years, many of whom had never considered the real dangers behind her spectacular photos. The incident sparked widespread debates about the risks of extreme selfie culture and the responsibility of social media influencers to promote safety. Mountain rescue organizations used Gigi's case to emphasize the importance of proper safety measures and backup plans, even for experienced climbers. Her story became a cautionary tale about how even the most skilled adventurers can fall victim to unexpected circumstances, and how the pursuit of social media content should never compromise basic safety protocols. It was October 25, 2018, and married couple Meenakshi Murthy and Vishnu Viswanath were exploring Yosemite National Park as part of their ongoing documentation of America's most beautiful natural landmarks. The 30 and 29-year-old software engineers from India had built a popular travel blog called Holidays and Happily Ever Afters, sharing their adventures with thousands of Instagram followers who loved their stunning photography from dangerous and scenic locations around the world. Meenakshi and Vishnu had met in college and bonded over their shared love of travel and photography. After moving to the United States for work, they had spent their weekends and vacations exploring national parks, always seeking the most dramatic and photogenic viewpoints. Their Instagram account featured breathtaking images from cliff edges, mountain peaks, and other precarious locations that required careful planning and considerable risk-taking. The couple was known among their followers for pushing boundaries to capture the perfect shot, often posing near cliff edges and dangerous viewpoints that made viewers nervous just looking at the photos. Ironically, Meenakshi had previously written about selfie dangers on their blog, asking, "Is our life worth just a photo?" But the pursuit of spectacular content for their growing social media presence seemed to override their awareness of the risks involved. Their Yosemite trip was planned as a multi-day photography expedition, with Taft Point being one of their most anticipated locations. The scenic overlook was famous among photographers for its unobstructed views and lack of safety railings, allowing for dramatic photos that appeared to show people suspended in midair above the valley floor 800 feet below. On that fateful afternoon, Meenakshi and Vishnu set up their camera on a tripod at Taft Point, carefully positioning themselves near the cliff edge for what they hoped would be their most spectacular selfie yet. Other visitors watched as they arranged their shot, adjusting the camera angle and testing different poses to achieve the perfect composition. The couple appeared confident and experienced, showing no signs of concern about the dangerous location. They activated the camera's timer function and moved into position for their final photo, standing close together near the edge of the cliff with the vast Yosemite Valley stretching out behind them. As the camera counted down to capture the image, something went wrong. Whether they lost their balance, stepped too close to the edge, or were affected by wind, both Meenakshi and Vishnu fell together off the cliff. Their camera continued recording, capturing the moments before and after their fatal fall. Other visitors who witnessed the tragedy immediately called for help, but there was nothing that could be done. The couple had fallen 800 feet to the valley floor below, and the impact was instantly fatal. The National Park Service recovered their bodies and confirmed that they had died from the trauma of the fall. Their camera and tripod were found exactly where they had set them up, containing the final photos and videos that documented their last moments. The images showed their excitement and anticipation, completely unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. Their deaths became international news and sparked renewed discussions about selfie culture and the extreme risks people take for social media content. Their story was widely cited as an example of how the pursuit of the perfect photo can lead to fatal consequences even for experienced travelers who understood the dangers involved. It was November 2017, and 20-year-old Toni Kelly was living her dream European adventure, documenting every moment for her thousands of social media followers back in New Zealand. The vibrant young woman had saved for months to afford the trip, working multiple jobs while studying to fund her travels across Europe. Her infectious enthusiasm and creative photography had earned her a growing following of people who loved experiencing her adventures vicariously through her posts. Toni had been traveling for several weeks, visiting Paris, Amsterdam, and other major European cities before arriving in London. She was staying in a modest hotel in the city center, excited to explore the historic landmarks and cultural attractions that she had dreamed of seeing since childhood. Her social media accounts were filled with photos from famous locations, always featuring her bright smile and adventurous spirit. The evening of the incident had been particularly enjoyable for Toni, who had spent the day sightseeing and socializing with other travelers she had met at her hotel. She had been documenting her London experience with various photos and was known among her followers for taking creative selfies that captured both her personality and the beauty of her surroundings. Her room on the second floor offered views of the London cityscape, which she found inspiring for photography. As the evening progressed, Toni decided to take one final selfie from her hotel room window to capture the London lights behind her. She had been drinking earlier in the evening and was in high spirits about her travel experiences, eager to share another memorable image with her followers. The window in her room opened fully, providing an unobstructed view of the street below and the city beyond. Toni opened the second floor window and leaned out to get the perfect angle for her photo, trying to frame herself against the London skyline. In her attempt to capture the ideal shot, she leaned too far out of the window and lost her balance. The combination of alcohol, the awkward position required for the selfie, and the height of the window created a deadly situation that unfolded in seconds. She fell from the second floor to the pavement below, suffering severe brain injuries from the impact with the concrete. Other hotel guests heard the commotion and immediately called emergency services, who arrived within minutes and rushed Toni to the hospital in critical condition. Medical teams worked frantically to save her life, but the trauma to her brain was too severe. Despite the best efforts of medical professionals, Toni never recovered from her injuries and passed away in the hospital several days later. A coroner's inquest later revealed that she had alcohol and cocaine in her system at the time of the fall, which likely contributed to her impaired judgment and loss of balance. In a final act of generosity, Toni's family made the decision to donate her organs, giving others a second chance at life through her tragedy. Her death became international news as another example of selfie-related fatalities among young travelers, prompting discussions about hotel window safety and the risks of taking selfies from dangerous positions. It was August 2014, and 21-year-old Oscar Otero Aguilar was enjoying a night out with friends in Mexico City, celebrating and socializing in the carefree way that young people do when they feel invincible. Oscar was known among his social circle as someone who loved being the center of attention, always ready with a joke or willing to do something outrageous to get a laugh. His Facebook account was filled with bold photos and attention-grabbing posts that showcased his outgoing personality and desire to stand out from the crowd. The 21-year-old had grown up in a working-class neighborhood of Mexico City, where showing toughness and fearlessness was often seen as a mark of respect among young men. Oscar worked at a local auto parts store during the day but lived for his evenings and weekends, when he could hang out with friends and escape the routine of daily life. His social media presence was important to him, and he was always looking for new ways to create dramatic and memorable posts that would impress his followers. That particular evening, Oscar and his friends had been drinking and celebrating at a small gathering when someone brought out a handgun. In Mexico, where gun violence was a serious problem, firearms were unfortunately not uncommon in certain social circles. The group was in a celebratory mood and had been taking various photos throughout the evening, documenting their night out with the kind of casual snapshots that young people share constantly on social media platforms. Oscar was particularly excited about the opportunity to take what he thought would be an edgy and impressive selfie. He had built his online reputation on posting bold and attention-grabbing content, and the presence of the gun seemed like the perfect prop for a dramatic photo that would get reactions from his Facebook friends. None of the group realized the weapon was loaded, treating it as a harmless accessory rather than the deadly instrument it actually was. As the evening progressed and the alcohol continued to flow, Oscar's judgment became increasingly impaired. He decided to pose for what he thought would be the ultimate dramatic selfie, holding the loaded gun to his head in a pose he believed would look tough and impressive. His friends watched as he positioned the weapon against his temple, completely unaware of the tragic consequences that were about to unfold. Oscar held his phone in one hand while pressing the gun against his head with the other, trying to frame the perfect shot that would capture both his face and the weapon in a way that looked dramatic and dangerous. As he attempted to take the selfie, his finger accidentally triggered the gun's mechanism while he was focused on getting the right angle for the photo. The weapon discharged instantly, shooting him in the head at point-blank range. The sound of the gunshot shocked everyone in the room as what had been a fun photo session turned into a horrific accident in the span of seconds. Oscar collapsed immediately, blood pooling around his head as his friends screamed and tried to comprehend what had just happened. Emergency services were called immediately, and Oscar was still alive when paramedics arrived at the scene. The medical team worked frantically to stabilize him and rushed him to the hospital, but his injuries were too severe. He tragically died in the ambulance on the way to receive medical treatment, never making it to the operating room where doctors might have been able to save his life. Mexico's Ministry of Public Security investigated the incident and confirmed the death as accidental, though they also arrested one of Oscar's friends who had been present at the scene. Another friend fled before police could question him, adding to the chaos and confusion surrounding the tragedy. The case became widely reported throughout Mexico and internationally as a stark example of the deadly risks of combining weapons with social media culture. Oscar's death served as a tragic reminder of how the pursuit of dramatic social media content can lead to fatal consequences, especially when combined with alcohol and poor judgment. His story became part of a growing catalog of selfie-related deaths that highlighted the dangerous lengths some people will go to for online attention and validation. Thanks for watching. Just when you think you've heard the most heartbreaking selfie tragedies, we're just getting started. Click the next video for the next stories that will leave you questioning how quickly dreams can turn into nightmares.